I'm going to call this City Council meeting to order for today and September the 25th. And our first order of business roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes. We have two presentations tonight, and Mr. Hayden, Kent, I think you're making one, and I'm making the other. And Dolly, you want to come forward? We're going to do it right here in front of the podium.
Everybody. Right here?
You take one side, and I'll take the other.
We do them two different times.
You take your pictures. Yeah, let's move back a little bit.
Go on up toward the counter.
Yeah, we gotta get out of the picture. I should have moved.
Okay. You want to hold your proclamation up?
And for those who aren't sure what's going on here, Dolly has just retired from City Hall. She's been with us for 45 years. And Mr. Hayden, I understand you're bringing this one from the House Representative.
Yes, we are. And I'm going to read this to Molly. I get to do a lot of these. Dolly. I knew I was going to do that because I know that like my daughter will, or kids are the same age, so Molly, Dolly, you know. I get to do a lot of these in a year's time, but it's really special when you got somebody that's worked 45 years at the same job, serving the city of Mexico. And you must have been two. No. That's child labor. I didn't think we did that. You know, but I've had the privilege of knowing Dolly.
Oh, well.
And her family and work with her brother-in-law. And again, it's a real privilege and longevity in serving our community. So this, I'm going to read this off. Whereas the time from time members of the House of Representatives are called to recognize meritorious endeavors in outstanding Missourians, a task which the legislative body embraces with great enthusiasm. Whereas Dolores Dolly Jesse of Mexico will retire from position as Deputy City Clerk and Collector for the City of Mexico on September 30th, following 45 years of steadfast and admirable service. Whereas Dolly is an outstanding individual who is faithful to perform her important duties and responsibilities with utmost professionalism, conscientious fairness, and whereas Dolly Jesse is known and admired and respected for her helpful attitude and friendly manner in which she has always treated people in and around the community, a unique quality that will greatly be missed by many. We're the recipient of the 2013 Volunteer of the Year with United Way of Audrain County. Dolly also enjoyed recognizing as the team coordinator for United Way of Audrain County, a public sector chairperson for Mexico United Way, a representative of the City of Mexico on the Audrain Agribusiness Annual Dinner, a supporter of Mexico area YMCA, and a member of the Bikers Chicks Club and
Well, you might want to love that.
No tattoos. All right. Whereas Dolly will undoubtedly look back on the past 4.5 decades and reminisce about her many worthwhile experiences and special relationship with revered colleagues while basking in the glow of a successful career now is at the end. Whereas a Sunday school teacher at Centennial Baptist Church, Dolly Jesse has been blessed with love and support of a wonderful family whose members include her husband of 36 years, Tim Jesse, 2 daughters, Ashley Shaw, Aaron, and Molly Talley, Vincent, and 5 grandchildren, Brenner, Timley, Callum, Thomas, and Eli. Now, therefore, resolved that we, the members of the Missouri House of Representatives 102nd General Assembly, join in expressing great gratitude for the superb service that Dolly Jesse has rendered to the City of Mexico during the past 45 years, wishing her ample opportunity to enjoy better things life has to offer. It further resolved that the Chief Clerk of the Missouri House of Representatives instructed to prepare a properly inscribed copy of this resolution for Dolores Dolly Jesse. So congratulations, it's well deserved, well deserved. Thank you very much.
And I'm going to read it too because 45 years, most people do not stay in the job for 45 years, and I think you deserve it. Although some of it's what you had in your time. it says Proclamation City of Mexico, Missouri. Whereas Dolores M. Jesse, known as Dolly Jesse, is a lifelong resident of Mexico, Missouri, and is a graduate of Mexico High School. Dolly Jesse married Tim Jesse in December of 1986, and they have 2 daughters, Ashley Shaw, Aaron, and Molly Tally Vincent, and 5 grandchildren, Brenner, Kenley, Caleb, Thomas, and Eli, all twins. Kenneth's girl. Whereas Dolly Jesse has worked for the City of Mexico for 45 years, starting as the COE student in June 1977 in the Clerk Finance Department. Dolly Jesse became a full-time employee on July 1st, 1978 as the utility billing clerk, and during her employment received several promotions. Dolly Jesse became the Deputy City Clerk on May 30th, 1985, and assumed the duties of Deputy City Clerk Collector in July 2010. And whereas Dolly Jesse has served the community in Mexico, Missouri in many capacities by being active in the community, Dolly served the City of Mexico, a team coordinator for the United Way of Audrain County, from December 1986 to 2022, 1997 to 2002, Mexico United Way Public Sector Chairperson, United Way of Audrain County 2013 Volunteer of the Year, served as a representative for the City of Mexico at the Audrain Agribusiness and Annual Dinner, and in support of the Mexico Area and Family YMCA. She's a member of the Biker Chicks Club. I would have never guessed. And a member of the Hopewell. Okay. Oh, and a member of Hopewell Baptist Church, an active member and Sunday school teacher at Centennial Baptist Church. And whereas the devoted public service of Dolly Jesse is deeply appreciated by the citizens of our community, and is the wish of the City Council that this service be duly recognized. Now, therefore, I, Vicki Briggs, Mayor of the City of Mexico, Missouri, do hereby proclaim September 25th, 2023 as a day to recognize Dolly Jesse in the City of Mexico, Missouri, and call upon all citizens to express their thanks to Dolly Jesse for her dedication in improving the quality of life in Mexico. Thank you. Okay, all right, moving on. We have minutes to approve. September 11th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve September 11th, 2023.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes. And we have the minutes of September 14th, 23, a special session to approve.
Move we approve the minutes of the special session September 14th.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams,
Abstain.
Hay,
Yes.
Abstain.
Oh, I've had special session. I was thinking of the other one.
Weber,
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes. Okay, now moving on, we are going to open this meeting for public hearing to consider the sanitary sewer use charge rates. Mr.
I move the open public hearing and to discuss sanitary sewer usage rates.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes. Mr. Slagle.
Okay. This is the time set for discussing the wastewater rate adjustment. This was actually part of our budget that we approved a couple weeks ago, but to cover the details for the public hearing, Roger Haynes.
Good evening, council. A notice of this public hearing was advertised in the Mexico Ledger on August 19, 2023. This hearing is for the purpose of discussing a wastewater rate adjustment that is proposed to be effective with the upcoming fiscal year. We're looking at an approximate 4% rate increase on our user rates. The current user charge portion on 1,000 gallons of usage is $1.44, that would change to $1.50. And the capital charge portion based on 1,000 gallons of usage is currently $6.21. That would change to $6.46. And the base rate per month is currently $9.82, and that would change to $10.21. An example on the change of the billing rate for a person that had 5,000 gallons per month usage, the current billing is $48.07, and that proposed rate with a 4% increase would be $50.01. Also, users of the utility collection system that are located and/or deliver sewer flow from the outside city's corporate limits shall be billed at the rate of 200% of rates established for user types based on a monthly metered water flow received from those flow contributors. A bit of a background as to why we go through this rate analysis each year rolls all the way back to 2008, where we retained the engineering services of Horner and Schifrin of St. Louis to complete an analysis of our system and facility plan on the city's wastewater treatment operation. In 2009, the facility plan was presented by Horner and Schifrin, identifying the need to make improvements estimated at a cost of $12,461,400. With voter approval, Phase 1 and Phase 2 of 3 phases of improvements were financed through bonds issued during 2010 and 2011. During 2012, the bonds were refunded to take advantage of a lower interest rate, which subsequently lowered the annual bond payment and reduced the payout term, and I'll go over that in more detail in just a few moments. Rather than financing the third phase improvements through another bond issuance and taking on additional debt, the city has elected to tackle additional needs for capital improvements by priority ranking each need and putting into effect a pay-as-you-go tactic where cash is reserved and then drawn down for anticipated capital outlays. From 2015 through 2022, the City of Mexico has been able to fund in excess of $4.47 million of capital improvements and equipment without additional borrowing. It is estimated that in fiscal year 2023, which is wrapping up this week, we'll end up with $772,000 in capital outlay. And fiscal year 2024 budget $730,500 in itemized capital expenditures. In addition to annual debt service payments, cash-funded capital outlay, wastewater fees must be adequate to cover costs associated with daily operations, maintenance of equipment, repair, renewal, and replacement reserves. This evening, staff will present to wastewater fund financial projections and a recommended sewer rate adjustment that is needed to provide sufficient financial resources to cover all of those costs. This PowerPoint, again, is going to identify the different areas that we need to cover with our user fees. First, the rate adjustments for sanitary sewer operations take the following expenditures into consideration: daily operations and maintenance of equipment, supplies, services, and personnel costs, and various other smaller repairs. Cash-funded capital outlays, plant structures, collection system, vehicles, and equipment. As we noted earlier, this upcoming budget shows capital outlays of approximately $730,500. Debt service obligations, that's the payment on our revenue bonds. And we'll go over that in more detail in just a few moments. And then finally, a recommendation to always have repair, renewal, and replacement reserves. This year, we have, again, in capital outlay, approximately $730,500 in capital outlay expenses. The most notable, of course, is the building improvements for a new maintenance facility out at the wastewater treatment plant of $315,000. And then, of course, second in line is possible cost of repairs to the trickling filter, for which we did have hail damage, and we will receive some insurance proceeds. We typically, in past years, try to be able to cash fund approximately $500,000 in projects. Some years are more and some years are less. As you can see, we have a range during this set of years ranging from as low as $367,000 to as high as the $730,000 that we're going to have this next fiscal year. Annual debt service, this fiscal year 2024, we will have a debt service on our bonds of $745,350. As you can see, that's been a fairly steady amount from about 2021 all the way through its maturity date of 2032. Prior to that, in fiscal years 18, 19, and 20, those annual costs for debt service was in the neighborhood of $777,000 to $781,000. We were able to reduce those annual debt service payments by roughly $30,000 a year by refunding the bonds and issuing new ones. And probably the biggest key that you don't see on this chart on the screen is we're also reduced the term of payments by 10 years. So that's very, very significant. Here's how we come up with what we need for a rate. We have a series of spreadsheets that we work through, which you have copies of some of those pages. You have like 4 copies of those pages, and I think there's like 17 operating pages in all, but I knew you didn't want to see all of those this evening, especially a smaller print as it has. Operating and maintenance anticipated next year, $1,881,000. Cash funded capital expenditures, $730,500. As mentioned just a few moments ago, debt service of $745,350. And then, of course, setting back some project reserve for the unknowns of $80,000. So total budget expenditures for next year is $3,436,865. With this rate adjustment, we anticipate bringing somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,457,692. And that would, if those came out dollar for dollar, it would add $20,000 to basically our capital reserves for future years. This just shows the charts, how we look at the different rates and key in different factors to see what kind of rate we would have based on 5,000 gallons of usage. And that shows approximately $50.02. The actual amount requested in tonight's study and the ordinance is $50.01 based on a household using 5,000 gallons of water in a month. Something that a lot of people always ask for is how do we compare? How do we compare with other municipalities in our area and other municipalities more specifically of similar size? On the far left, you see that our current rate based on 5,000 gallons of usage is $48.07. With an approximate 4% adjustment, that would go to $50.01. You can see Columbia in blue on this bar graph represents residential households. The orange or red, whichever way you see it, since I'm a bit colorblind, is non-residential properties. So you can see Columbia, they really make a separation on what they bill residential properties versus non-residential, where Mexico has the same rate for both. Same with Fulton, same with Hannibal, same with Jefferson City, and same with Troy. They put that rate the same for whether it's residential or non-residential. And looking at cities close to our size, you can see that Fulton on that 5,000 gallons is $47.55. We've actually not seen that rate change in a few years. I can't really tell you why, except they have had some change in leadership over the last couple of years. Holt Summit, you can see much smaller community. Typically, the smaller the community that has a mechanical plant, the higher the cost is because you have a fixed cost and you're dividing that among fewer households and businesses, thus your share is greater. Same holds true at Jefferson City. The fact that they have a larger population for their mechanical plant, they can spread those costs across and it will drive down the rates. They did, in April of '22, pass a $44 million wastewater revenue bond for needed improvements. So most certainly their rates will be starting to move upward to cover the cost of their debt service. Marshall, as you can see, similar size as Mexico, very similar rate compared to what we are proposing. Moberly's rate is quite a bit higher than what the City of Mexico has. They had to undertake quite an improvement plan because they had what they called a combined system, which meant that their sanitary sewer and their regular runoff water was going down the same pipes. And DNR says that will not work. You're going to have two separate systems, and that was an expensive venture to undertake. Odessa, again, toward the Kansas City area, higher rates, again, because they have a mechanical plant, but they have fewer businesses and residents to split those fixed cost and variable cost among. Osage Beach, you can see their residential rates rather low. They make that up on the business side within Osage Beach. They also serve communities outside Osage Beach, which, similar to us, they charge those in the neighborhood of 200% more on the rate than their residents. Today, again, they do a split between their residential and non-residential. Troy, very similar to the city of Mexico, a mechanical plant, that is $46.60. However, in reviewing rates again today, Troy just had a rate increase. They are going up $6 to $52.60. And there is Wentzville also as a comparison. I mention this each year, rate covenant within our revenue bonds. Basically, it says after we cover all of our other costs in operating the system, we must have 110% debt service coverage, and we have been able to meet that every year since we first started making those revenue bond payments over a decade ago. The final comment in there says, in any fiscal year that net revenues are in an amount less hereinbefore provided, the city will immediately employ a consultant to make recommendations with respect to such rates and charges. The consultant makes that report to the city, and then we'd have to get back in line with that 110% coverage requirement. As I've stated before, we've been able to cover that requirement quite soundly ever since we had the revenue bonds first generated in 2010. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the public or council might have.
This is a silly question. In this sheet you gave us,
Yes.
you just told us $50.01 or 2 cents.
It will be $50.01.
Okay.
The one where it has the $50.02, that's off of a multi-page spreadsheet, and it does some rounding that gets into the hundreds and thousands of a penny. And when those all added up, that came up with the 50.02. It would actually be the 50.01.
Well, my question was, the current rate is $9.82 on 1,000 gallons, and you have, for 5,000, it's $48.07, but that number should be $49.10, and 5,000 gallons of 1021, which is on your sheet here, would be $51.05, and you have $50.01. What is this? Why is that?
I guess I have to see where I'm not following yet.
I'm just looking at the sheet you provided us, and it says, current rate is $9.82, and times 5,000 gallons, you have it at $48.07, but if you take 5 times $9.82, it's $49.10. It's not a big deal, and if you take 5 times the 1,000 rate of what you're proposed, it's $51.05, and you're at 50 and a penny.
Yeah, and it will be 50 and a penny.
Picky, huh? Doesn't matter. I mean, it may matter, but
It's 5101.
no, it's 51.05. 51.05, and it says 50.01.
And you're saying what?
At the top
If
it
you
says
take
proposed. At the top it says proposed 5101.
I understand, but it says here, current rate is $9.82, and for 5,000 gallons, it's $48.07. You take 5 times that, it's $49.10. And it says proposed rate is $10.21. 5,000 gallons is $50.01. If you take 5 times that number, it's $51.05.
Oh, okay, I see where, that's a base monthly rate, 1021. That has nothing to do with 1,000 gallons of usage.
I knew there had to be a reason,
Yeah.
but it didn't multiply
Okay.
out.
Yeah, well, I was saying, oh, what have I done?
So Roger, just because this has to be done on the radio tomorrow, so what you're saying, if someone's current rate is $48.07, I just want to make sure I've got the numbers right. $48.07, the proposed rate is 50.01. That's a 4% increase.
Right.
That's about.
Yeah, it's like 3.99. It was really right at 4.
Okay. Just want to double check.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the public hearing. I think this is open to the public. Any more questions for Roger?
So we did 12.5 million, that said, to upgrade it. So how much was the bond issues for 1 and 2? Sorry, I wasn't here during that.
Well, the bond issue was actually for $16 million, so we were approved to spend up to $16 million.
Okay.
But we only issued enough to take care of the first 2 phases, because when we looked at the cost of the third phase, it was going to be such a rate shock to our users that we said, hey, let's try to tackle this on an annual basis by save cash and pay for it incrementally.
I was here when we did that, so I'd like to add something else with that. I think it's worked out great because I see things that come across our table all the time if something breaks, and if we'd have got that full bond issue then, we'd have spent it all. I mean, been gone, so this have been additional, these things that break would have been just additional costs that we would have just had to come up with money on. So
Correct.
I think this way has really worked well for us, so.
The plan would be, long-term strategy is with the bonds paying out in 2032, and basically we have some permitting requirements again about that time. If we had such a large amount, we didn't have all the cash we could borrow again and not have 2 sets of debt service to take care of, would have this one paid off.
Yeah, because you said, how much have we spent? 4-point-something million?
4.47 million.
So we've spent
that we've
more
got.
than we would have had the whole bond for, extra.
Yeah, but as you kind of alluded to earlier, some of the things that we've paid with cash, let's just say like sewer jet truck or whatever, that would not have been part of that bond issue. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Got any public comment? This is public hearing. We're still in public hearing time, so. Do I hear a motion to?
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Can I just go ahead?
Yep.
I move for reading of bill number 2023-65.
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Bill number 2023-65, an ordinance amending Chapter 40, Article 3, Division 4, Section 4160A of the Mexico City Code relating to sanitary sewer use charges. I move for a second reading of bill number 2023-65.
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Bill number 2023-65, an ordinance amending Chapter 40, Article 3, Division 4, Section 4160A of the Mexico City Code relating to the sanitary sewer use charges. I move for passage of bill number 2023-65.
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes. Okay, thank you all. We now next item on our agenda is B, under Bill number 2023-66, and this has to do with traffic and vehicle schedule. Mr. Schleifer.
Yes, the Mexico Public School District had asked the city to take a look at the area around Eugene Field School, reference traffic flow and parking issues, and to cover the details of what they're asking us to look at. Drew Wilford.
Well, good evening, Council. As you have on your screen before you is the area between West and Grove along the south side of Boulevard, which is the area that in particular is in question. Currently, there's a 10-minute parking zone that's established by the traffic schedules, so that'd be Chapter 38, Article 10, in this case, Schedule 20. This is actually the last 10-minute parking location in the city of Mexico, at least on the schedules. And when when we were approached by the school district staff, we evaluated a few different items, and in particular, their concern had to deal with traffic on the north end of the school and the potential of essentially blocking the West and Boulevard intersection. So as we have looked at this, what we're moving forward with is the recommendation to delete subsection B on Schedule 20, which reads, on the south side of Boulevard Street from West Street to Grove Street. And then what Public Works will do is essentially stripe that area to be accessible or handicap parking. The school has had interest in increasing their accessible parking, and their location to enter the building that is the most accessible entry point is on the north side. So this would actually serve to help a few different items all at one time. So we're recommending that council proceed with reading and with 2 readings by title only and passage of this ordinance. And it has been posted the required length of time. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Make a motion to read bill number 2023-66.
Second.
Miller?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Bill number 2023-66, an ordinance amending Chapter 38, Article 10, Schedule 20 of the Traffic and Vehicle Schedule of the Mexico City Code. I move for second reading of bill number 2023-66.
Second.
Miller?
Yes.
Yes.
Williams? Hay?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Bill number 2023-66, an ordinance amending Chapter 38, Article 10, Schedule 20 of the Traffic and Vehicle Schedule of the Mexico City Code. I move for passage of bill number 2023-66.
Second.
Miller?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes. Okay, we turn the page, we go to other business, and did I miss one? Oh, yeah, sorry, turned it too fast. Okay, last item here is bill number 2023-67, and this is an agreement with Audrain County Historical Society. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor, this is an annual agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society for assistance that we provide them. To cover the details of the agreement, Roger Haynes.
As Bruce mentioned, this resolution authorizes the city manager to enter an agreement with the Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens. The 2022-23 budget, again, that's the budget that we're in now, allows for the City of Mexico to contribute to the Audrain County Historical Society the sum of $4,900 for the use in providing programs and activities to citizens. The city has provided assistance to the Audrain County Historical Society since the year 2000. Staff recommends that the City of Mexico and Audrain County Historical Society enter into an agreement and that council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached. Lori Pratt, the Executive Director of the Historical Society, has provided the council a narrative of the different activities that they have provided throughout this year, and of course, notably, as of course the recent walk back in time that we just had, and then of course their history camp, which had its 20th anniversary this past year. 2 very, very nice events for our community.
I move for reading of bill number 2023-67.
Second.
Miller?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Bill number 2023-67, a resolution authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement with Audrain County Historical Society to assist in providing services to citizens. I move for passage of bill number 2023-67.
Second.
Miller?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes. Okay, now we turn the page. Now we're back to something we worked on a couple of weeks ago that came to us, and this was the sidewalk ordinance and the planning and zoning. We had asked the planning and zoning to provide us with a recommendation, and they did so, and then we postponed it. And Mr. Schlegel, would you like to address this, please?
Sure. As you already mentioned, the council did discuss this a couple of weeks ago, and this was an ordinance as we look at sidewalks required in subdivisions and new subdivisions. And there were some proposed changes that were recommended by the Planning and Zoning. Council want to take a further look at it. and ask that it be brought back in the form of a draft ordinance to be discussed. And to cover some more of the details and the background, we'll turn to Drew Wilford.
Council, it's my intent to provide you with some of the background here on how this was developed, and I've got essentially a few points that I will cover that are included in the letter, and a few items that I would like to provide that are on screen. The proposed changes include adding a section which would state something on this order: sidewalks shall be installed in accordance with the city's master trail plan, and to cover something which was not covered in great detail at our last meeting. In 2014, the city adopted a comprehensive plan, and that plan was a pretty extensive effort from what I understand. I was not around when it was developed, but it was developed through outreach to community leaders, stakeholders, public meetings were held, a substantial effort went into this particular plan. Part of that plan was the master trail plan, and so this, what you have before you on your screen, is a excerpt from that particular document. I would try, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit to provide a better, clear picture here of what it shows. So this was developed in looking at different locations that are key locations throughout the city of Mexico, such as parks and schools, anything else which could be a pedestrian traffic generator, we would say. And so you notice on here, there's a number of streets that are outlined in various colors, and those all are part of the master trail plan. And so just from a first standpoint, looking at what was proposed last council meeting, we would make a recommendation to look into clarifying, as we look at the streets, and I would say subdivisions that are built along these streets, clarifying that first section, the new section, which would be A, to make sure that we state that sidewalk would be required along both sides of these particular streets. It's somewhat of a clarification point from last meeting, but I thought it was worth including. And then another point would be when we look at scenarios where we've got potential connections to these streets. And I want to use Teal Lake Village as an example, if I may here. And this particular example, and I realize that is hard to see here, my apologies. That's still hard to see, but we'll go with it for right now. This is essentially Amelia Drive going east-west here. And when this development was proposed, we ended up having, I said east-west, it's north-south, my apologies there. When this development was proposed, we ended up having a additional city project developed out of it, and that was the extension of Falcon Drive. When we did that, we ended up having a connection of sidewalk established that would go all the way through this entire area. If we ended up having a exemption for, what I'm going to say is the fifth exemption in what was brought to council last time, which is adjacent subdivisions have no sidewalk connecting to public right-of-way within the proposed subdivision, you could easily see how this would preclude further sidewalk development on either side. So when we were evaluating this further, the fourth exemption is something that is written about in the letter and is discussed and would be the higher recommendation than having just a simple adjacent subdivision exemption. And this particular sheet here, even though it is rather difficult to read, the entirety of Teal Lake Village is only about 266 feet wide. So you could have a subdivision go in less than 300 feet, and then if that didn't have sidewalk, you would not be required to put sidewalk in that next subdivision. So it's just a few points here to offer some clarification as council considers the different ways to approach this. When we were discussing a distance versus just simply an adjacent subdivision, it came to mind, this is a good example, that having a distance requirement would assist as opposed to having simply an adjacent requirement. I hope I'm explaining that and using this example here correctly. If you have questions, feel free to stop me. Another item that came up when we were discussing this was single side versus both sides. And by all means, that's a consideration which I think merits further thought. And by stating both sides are required in the essentially streets that are on the comprehensive plan, a single side requirement could be enacted for streets that are just part of the subdivision itself. So picture something going in along a street like Lakeview or South Clark Street. You might require sidewalks both sides of the street if a subdivision was around both. But then in the subdivision itself, the minor roads, it would be a single side. Another item for clarification. And then looking at construction timeframe, found doing some research, other communities do provide options to construct that sidewalk at different times. Some require it all up front, like we do, where the developer puts it all in the beginning. Some require it as the subdivision develops. So in the case of a lot that might have 18 lots, as the houses get developed, that's when the sidewalk gets built. I've heard pros and cons on that. Pros being that essentially you don't have to replace sidewalk when it gets damaged. The cons are easily, though, you end up with a piecemeal approach. So we would tend to say the recommendation would be to hold course on that, but I want to make sure to be clear and offer what research we have found in this time period. And then finally, getting to development cost, we did a quick review on essentially sidewalk costs. And if I'm using a standard estimating book called RS Means, I'm looking at a 4-foot wide sidewalk with typical construction, so I'm not accounting for where we might have significant soil issues or other atypical scenarios that would exist out there. Just generally speaking, your sidewalk will cost around the price range of $26 per linear foot. And again, pricing may vary based on topography, but that's not a bad number to use. So when we look at an average, let's just say a lot size of 80 feet wide, putting a sidewalk across that would be about $2,080. And if you assumed both sides and you assumed that you had 18 lots, well, that cost to a developer would be $37,440. If a developer was allowed to essentially just build on one side, sidewalks on one side of those streets, their cost drops roughly in half to about $18,720. So those are some of the key items that staff, as we wanted to raise for consideration as we look at this further. And if you have any questions, recommendations, further thoughts, we'll be happy to entertain them and evaluate them.
So, go back to the trail map.
My apologies, there we go.
So, a lot of those are proposed future like a lot of those don't have sidewalks right now.
Yep, correct.
So when you're talking about, when you look at this 1,000 feet rule, you could build a subdivision that would be 1,000 or less than 1,000 feet from one of these red spots, but the way it reads right now, they wouldn't have to put anything in, correct?
So the way it would read, at least my understanding, the idea would be that we're talking any street that is in that subdivision, which is on this map, would have to have sidewalks regardless of the circumstance, because it's part of our comprehensive plan, the master trail plan. So if the lines exist on the map, sidewalks must go in. Secondly, would be if you don't have a sidewalk in either an adjacent subdivision or within that 1,000 feet, then you may be exempt from the process, or maybe you only have to put them on one side, that kind of a aspect to it. So it's saying regardless, looking forward in the city of Mexico, trying to build out a sidewalk infrastructure that looks somewhat like this map, any subdivision that comes in that would touch one of those streets, regardless if there is sidewalks anywhere near it, because we want to build towards this future right here, we're going to have sidewalks put in.
Touch it or be within 1,000 feet of it?
Touch it. It's got to be adjacent to that street.
Because the part of this says you put something in elsewhere, it has to be within 1,000 feet, right?
So that would be for internal to the subdivision. So we're talking, think about it from major roads and minor roads. In essence, if you're inside the subdivision, typically more minor roads. If your subdivision, though, potentially a good example may be Teal Lake Village again. Your more minor road would be Amelia Drive, and then your more major road would be Teal Lake Road. So regardless, you would have to put in sidewalks along Teal Lake Road. But if there was nothing else there, as far as an adjacent subdivision or something that was within 1,000 feet, you could be exempt from putting in sidewalks.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. So, on this map right now, when you look, Birdland is on the red. The main road through Birdland is red. Right there.
Yeah, this would be Lakeview, I believe.
But right now, if somebody, we have a proposal, somebody's back in there, and they say, well, it doesn't touch, but it's not within 1,000 feet, or it would be within 1,000 feet if that was built. You see where I'm going with this? Like, so it's exempt from that 1,000 feet exception because it's not actually built yet, even though we want it to be built.
Right, so the way it currently reads would be, if it's adjacent to it, you'd look at condition A in this, as proposed at least. And then for inside that subdivision, so we'll take that Park Creek as an example. Because it's not identified, none of the roads around it are on the master trail plan or master street plan, either one, then it would not have to build a sidewalk there. So then you would go down to item B in this, and it would read, new subdivisions shall have sidewalks as it's proposed right now on at least one side of the street. That's within the new subdivision itself. However, there are exceptions, and one of those exceptions to sidewalks within that subdivision would be the 1,000 feet rule. But regardless of the distance, if you're adjacent to one of the streets or one of the trails that's on here, if you're touching that, you got to build that part, even though there may be no sidewalks around it at all. That part has to be built with the intent of, if other parts are slowly built, we eventually get there.
Right, but then you're looking at, so let's just stay with the Park Creek, right? So they would build that with no sidewalks, because there is no sidewalks in Birdland. Even though we propose in our trail plan, there should be. So since there is no sidewalks there, as long as they don't touch that road, since it's not built yet, right, they don't have to build sidewalks. But if that sidewalk was built, they would have to, if it was within 1,000 feet of that road, they would have to build sidewalks. You see where I'm at now? Like, simply because it's not built today, they get a pass in the future. What could be in the future.
Okay, yeah, I get the point of, I think it's somewhat of a separate point perhaps. What I was kind of catching there was it's within Lakeview is within the Birdland area, and the Park Creek subdivision is actually over 1,000. It's like 8 blocks plus from that point. But your point is essentially the same premise, if I'm understanding right, the same premise that applies to the comprehensive plan on wanting to slowly build that out should imply internally to subdivisions as well, to slowly build them out as well.
I'm saying if, in my view, whether the sidewalk's there today or not there today,
right,
the 1,000 feet should apply. If that's our goal for the city is to have a sidewalk in that spot, simply because it's not built today, because that's how we've ended up having to pay for sidewalks out here on Teal Lake, because we didn't have this plan in place, and so we went to them and say, would they buy it and build it? Well, heck no, they don't want to build it. So we ended up paying for it. But, 15 years ago, nobody thought you'd have Amelia Drive down there and all that stuff.
Which is why the comprehensive plan is hopefully important. Hopefully, we use that to kind of plan that growth. We try to look at this every time we've got a development to make sure we're following that plan that was developed. But yeah, I understand what you're saying there.
I mean, I'm totally down with your one side. I think that's logical, especially inside subdivision. It helps them.
If we just do one side.
Drew, in 2016, that's when we adopted our new city code, correct?
I think it was 2017, I think.
2017, okay.
Or
And then
close.
right after that, because of discussions with the citizens, we came in and adopted the sidewalk policy that we have now, which is we need sidewalks, correct?
I think when we adopted the code, that's when all of the sidewalk items came into play.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any
Thought it was a
separate.
little later. And so.
I'm not aware.
I'm trying to decide why we thought it was important at the time, or why we don't think it's quite as important as it is now.
I don't recall any outreach that was involved with sidewalks back in, I'll just say 2017 or 2018. I do recall when we recodified the code, and I believe that's when all of that came into play. But absolutely, as you would prefer to see it, we will do our best to meet those expectations and develop an ordinance to move forward with.
I can see I can see that one side of the street is probably a fair removal of two sides down to one side into subdivision, but I don't think we're ever going to end up with sidewalks if we don't start. That's a concern of mine. I mean, we have a lot of citizens that have complained about our sidewalks, and we can say, well, we're going to skip this one and this one and this one and start next time, but when does that mean? When are we going to do that?
Sure.
And the question last time was, what if it's 1,005 feet? Are you going to decide? I mean, it's making it arbitrary for you to have to make a decision. Dave, that's just my thought.
I'd at least lean it over and talk to Mr. Slagle about this, because I'm totally confused. I apologize. I can count pills 5 at a time. You get past 30 and I'm screwed up anyway. But if we did on one side, required on one side,
Now, this would be for subdivisions.
new subdivision, just what it says here. New subdivisions on one side, we need those two exceptions on 4 and 5?
No, you would not.
You
If
don't
you
have to,
just,
no.
So,
you don't have to have any exceptions, theoretically speaking.
so am I oversimplifying?
No.
No, I don't think so.
He thought I was being really stupid, and I am. But
That's
keep it simple.
That's what I was trying to say. I'm all for giving up a sidewalk to help the contractor, but I'm not necessarily interested in giving up all sidewalks, because I think we're going backwards on what our plan was from several years ago.
And I hope we don't give any variances if we do something.
Well, and see, I'm trying to save him from having to make some independent decisions that are not good at a later date because of this and that and the other.
So what you're doing, it would simplify it. It's to the subdivisions, it would be more simple. But since we've also had more than one contractor come forward and talk to us about how expensive everything is getting, this should be helped them at least by 50%, as you say.
It certainly seems like a logical compromise there. Yep.
And Mr. Hague, you mentioned the last meeting, I think, the safety for kids, and that's, connectivity is not my big
Yes, if we can
concern.
get it
Is this going to
downtown.
solve it to one, if we do it on one side?
I mean, I think it helps. I think both sides is, a great plan. If you go to, I'm pretty sure that's probably standard if you build a subdivision in Columbia. I've been in some new subdivisions and they have on both sides, but, I could probably compromise to one side. This is what I got to wrap my head around, and someone's got to correct me, because I know we got a lot of people banging the drum, and I hear this word contractor, and I see people come to the mic and talk. And in my mind, a contractor swings a hammer. I don't think anybody's come to the microphone and swung a hammer. So are we talking contractors, are we talking developers? Are we talking developers can't sell their land to contractors because contractors don't want to build a sidewalk? Or developers don't want to build a sidewalk? Because we're reporting it to the news, and the news is blasting it out that we're against contractors coming to Mexico. And I know some of us talk to contractors, and they haven't said that. But then we have people stand up here who I know are developers who aren't swinging a hammer. And they're saying, well, we're not getting contractors to come here. Are you not selling your land to contractors so they can build a house? or are you not selling it, or is it costing you too much to hire somebody on $2,000? Because what I see here is you got 18 lots at $37,000. We gave you 10, now it's down to 20,000, 27,000.
No, we
Not
gave 10
37.
per lot.
10 per lot?
10 per lot.
Well, good Lord.
You got 18 lots, you got 108,000.
Then we should do double sides. I mean, that's where I have a problem with, is that people going out banging the drum and now we're getting the community and thinking that we don't have contractors coming here. When I saw a house go up on Calhoun Street in 4 days. So it must be a contractor over there. And so either the media needs to get it right, or the people that come up here need to get their vocabulary right, because I think they're developers, not contractors.
I beg your pardon.
And so that's where I get a little upset. And so as I start to lean on this, and I get the compromise of it, but I'm with we need sidewalks, and we did a study. I wasn't on there, but as it was reported to me that we did a study, we needed sidewalks. And if we give you $10,000 per lot and you can't put in a $2,500 sidewalk, then where's the rest of that money going? I mean, copper wires are pretty high. I don't want to put ground in my new house. Can I do that? Can I get a variance? It's safety. It's safety. I struggle with it because I don't think contractors have a problem with it. I think developers have a problem with it.
I would agree with that.
If there was contractors in here that say, I want to build 50 houses, and the sidewalks have it, and we'll have the 50 houses done in 5 years, then I'm sitting there going, okay, I can probably lean a little bit with it. But if it's a developer saying contractors don't want to come here, and we haven't heard from a contractor, then I'm a little less going with it. And now we went over, and I'm sorry I'm on my soapbox, but I live in a world of exceptions. But now we've went over a master trail plan. We've talked about all these exceptions, and they bring up good points of if this happens, where we at, and the less is more. Less is more in my opinion. If you say 2 sidewalks and they walk in here, we did say that, and now we're here because nothing against planning and zoning, and nothing against, and I understand getting those variances or trying to get it pushed through, but I know we said we wanted sidewalks, and now we're here looking at exceptions, and in 10 years there's going to be 15 of them. I'm just kind of upset with what I've seen in the media, and I don't think it has to do with contractors. I think it has to do with developers and the people banging the drum. And so now I could be wrong. Maybe I need to see some of those people swing a hammer. I'd be a little more happier or something. But
well, Steve, I kind of go along with you. The words that we got were the side was expensive, right? But it's $2,000, and we heard the water tap was expensive. It's $3,900. So that's 2 and 4. That's $6,000. And we heard Union Electric's hard to work with, and I don't know what that's worth. But we gave them $10,000 per lot. So we covered the expenses. So now we're down to, as you say, the contractor building the house, because we've taken on some of the basic expenses that everybody said that's a reason to build in Fulton or Centray is because of these expenses. We gave you enough money to cover those expenses.
I'm sorry.
The other thing is that the money we're giving away, I assume everybody realizes this is CARES money, and typically our CARES money we use to help everyone. Fire truck, hospital survey, things of that sort. This money we're giving to individuals so that their individual company can make more money. And I can tell you there's a lot of companies in this town that would be happy to get $10,000 for their company so they can make more money. So to come back and say that we don't have enough money to make a profit in my business is kind of offensive to me, because I'm not sure that that's what CARES money was really for. It was for a private person, for their private business.
So,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, is sidewalks covered under the CARES money? Can they use the money for sidewalks?
public improvements.
Public improvements.
So what are we even talking about?
Water,
It's
sewer,
for that.
street, stormwater.
So then what are we talking about this for? As this goes back to what I said last meeting, if they get the CARES money, they should put it in. If they don't take the CARES money, then that's a different subject you could take on, but if you're
they
getting
don't-
money from us and we're saying sidewalks are important, you put the sidewalks
If they don't put it in, don't give them the CARES money.
Right, that's what I said last time, like,
We also heard that we don't have any houses, but we have, in one subdivision, we have 10 houses done, or more, almost done or done, and one that started last week that's up, and I don't think any of them have sold, so are they too expensive? Are they in the wrong location? But that's really not our problem. I want us to have houses, I want us to have people come to town, but it can't be funded all by the city council. I mean, that's not fair to all the rest of the citizens. The CARES money is going to have to be paid back, and you and me and all of us are going to have to pay it in our taxes. So I have a concern about giving money to 2 or 3 individuals building subdivisions, and they're using it for their own benefit.
And Steve, to comment on your comment about developers versus contractors, I've talked to a contractor who built some houses here, and I've tried to catch up with another one. I haven't caught up with him. But anyway, I said, are you having any trouble building houses? Are you having any trouble with the city? Having any trouble with, he said, oh, we have problems, but we learn to work around them. And he would not complain no matter how hard I pushed him. And I said, well, you have trouble with the water company? No, but they just got to pay. Do you have trouble with Ameren? Yes. But you work around it because you learn how to do it. So, you're right, I think. I don't think it's contractors who are saying, hey, I can't do it. I think it's developers.
Well, it's expensive to build a home now. I mean,
Yeah.
The interest
And I
rate
get
and
it.
expense is a big deal
I get
about
it.
selling
I get it.
houses.
Okay, I apologize. You didn't like me using the word contractors, that's just because.
no, it's not you.
You
It's
know,
not
but,
you.
uh,
I mean, everybody's used it.
I think what we're really talking about are whoever people are building the sidewalks in a subdivision, regardless of
I agree
what
with-
we might call them. Now, about the ARPA money, I'm a little confused, but let me just ask you this, and maybe you can't answer it, but the ARPA money, isn't that sort of just something that we're just using for right now that is maybe not necessarily available in the future? Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
That is
Once
correct.
the money is gone, it is gone.
Okay.
How much do we have left?
Right.
How much do we have left, or do we know?
$40,000 if we fund all the lots out there, right, Mr. Slagle?
Correct. I mean, we funded 12 so far, and then we've got a request for 12 and 18, and so.
That'd be
So if those are all funded, then there's still 40 left?
There's like 460,000 out of $500,000.
And I-
$40,000.
And that has been CARES money, it's to fund the housing incentive program, and so that will come to an end unless we find other funding.
that's 30 houses.
So we were going to put, the idea was to get 50 lots on the ground. So,
Well, I can
and that's
tell you-
been reasonably successful to do so. I think we need to be careful that we keep that out of this, because those are two things. But to sum up, I think a little bit here is to say that it is important that we follow the master trail plan. I mean, that's what the citizens have said we should do. So I think that's important, especially as we look at major routes and so on. I find it to be reasonable when I look at it to say in new subdivisions, sidewalks at least on one side. But council, if I was going to help you support this, I think it would say that you should take 4 and 5 out of here, and don't do those as the exceptions. Take the exceptions out because it makes it much clearer, much more direct to say, here's where it is. If you're on a main route, 2. If you're on a subdivision, 1. That's the way it is.
Make it,
That's pretty clear.
it's a compromise, essentially. Yeah.
I'm good with that, to send it back and have ordinance drawn.
Well, we can't vote on the ordinance tonight.
Just got to-
We have to just a consensus, give you direction about what to bring back to us, and that would be brought back in a couple of weeks. And so if I have a consensus on bringing it back with number 4 and 5 deleted, perhaps, I have no objections, and I'm going to assume we have a consensus. Thank you, Drew. Okay, moving on. We now have appointments to the Library Board and the Airport Advisory Board. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honors, we deal with the Library Board first. John Walker has filled an unexpired term on the board, and that term expired in July. Mr. Walker has expressed interest in reappointment. We have not received any other applications, so this would be for a new 3-year term. This is a council appointment. If you'd want to appoint John Walker to fill a 3-year term.
So moved.
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes. Okay, and then the Airport Advisory Board.
Yes, the Airport Advisory Board, there's currently one vacant position on the board that expires in October 25. Russell Runge has expressed interest in serving on it. We've not received any other applications. Again, this is a council appointment, and if you so chose, you could appoint him to the unexpired term that ends in October 25.
So moved.
Second.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes. Okay, and claims.
Claims.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes. And next thing here is our council comments, and followed by our public comments. Council, I'll begin with you, Larry.
I'm sorry. You said me?
First off,
I just want to congratulate the Historical Society on another good walk back in time. We had good weather and everything went well, it seems. And that's about all I have. Oh, I just wanted, going back to the sidewalk thing real quick, I don't want to talk about sidewalks, but I want to thank, again, the Planning and Zoning Commission, because they've really had to put up with a lot of junk back and forth and all that kind of stuff, and that's a tough enough job with that hassle. So, but I appreciate what they did and do.
Chris?
Well, you got all the good ones. If you went to walk
Make a
back,
list.
wait, go back to. If you went to walk back in time, you find out there was a whole lot of people there, and they seemed to be having a good time. And I drove the taxi around quite a little bit and picked up a lot of people. Picked up 2 people from Moberly that couldn't hardly walk. I'm not sure how they got out of the nursing home. They came all the way, and they wanted to come. And
How do you know they live in a nursing home?
I'm just guessing. I don't know how. They couldn't hardly walk out of their car. But anyway.
He took them back to Moberly in a taxi.
Yeah, I took them all the way back on the golf cart. Mr. Dye, of course, made apple butter. He was quite a success. Full apple butter maker at the show, and that's real good. And I want to thank Dolly for 45 years of service to the City of Mexico. That's all.
I'll just echo the walk back in time. It's an amazing event. So many people, so interesting. I will say that so many people were sad the boat wasn't here again. Besides that, the weather's been pretty good, and I would just like to address one thing with not so much the sidewalks, but people implied that Mexico was behind the curve with housing. Last night I did a search for houses under 250,000. Mexico had more than Fulton, more than Moberly, more than Centralia. Mexico had more for sale right now than all of them at under 250,000. So I think we've got a lot of houses for sale. And of course we want more, but it was kind of made out that we didn't have stuff here. And I was a little shocked when I saw that, because I just assumed that Mexico just didn't have anything. But it was like 40 houses under 250,000. So that's it.
Yeah, walk back in time. It's amazing that it seems to get bigger as it, and it's been going a long time. I thought the mayor should dress up. I saw her from a distance. I don't think she saw me, but I think she ought to dress up like Martha Washington or something.
Dress up
Do
like
that,
whom?
and go around there or something, next year. Congratulations to Miss Jessie. You do something 45 years, I mean, you gotta love it. If I'm teaching at 45 years, I give the chief of police the permission to take me out, because that is a long time to do this. I want to address, and I hate to get heated. you know, this council does, I think, try to do its best for Mexico. We have very smart people. We have businessmen. I know we're friends with people that spoke to us about the sidewalks. But I take offense to, and I get it, I take offense to kind of the one-sided media and the extravaganza of letters and stuff that we are not trying to help Mexico build. And so that's kind of what was in my comments. And we will, when we have done things and we listen to the community, things have been brought to us, and I think we've tried to improve the community that way. And I take offense to that we're making it hard for contractors to it. And I'll say, if contractors want to come here, come talk to us. I mean, if there is something really that is difficult, I don't think it's sidewalks. I don't think if we brought in 10 contractors, it'd be sidewalks. And so, but I just want them to know, because I know they've been reading stuff in the paper and things like that. We're not against bringing contractors here or stopping building houses here in Mexico. We talk about it all the time. I think Bruce has done a great job of bringing us things to try to get those things done. And we'll continue to do it. But we need sidewalks. We need a place for people to walk. We need safety. And we've got to start somewhere. You know, it's not the 1960s or 70s. We need to start somewhere, and so we have sidewalks in the future. So that's what I have to say about that.
My turn. Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the P&Z for, in the first place, putting up with our delay, and we do thank them for their hard work on it, and I think perhaps we've got a compromise. At least we've done the best we can on it. So, Jim, aren't you on P&Z? Would you relay our...
Ken, was this as much fun as the legislature?
Yeah, this is really like it.
relay our thanks to them when you see them. And then the walk back in time?
Excuse me.
You'll get your turn in a minute.
I was simply going to say, Jim Dye, 219 Teal Lake Road. I think that's what you have to do here. The sidewalk issue for us, really, it's a cost of goods sold item. It really just goes in, because the developer doesn't pay it, the contractor doesn't pay it, the buyer pays it. So it's simply a cost of goods sold item. And that's the way we see it. You know, the developer, builder, the realtors, we see ourselves as the engine of housing in the community. And the council is a regulatory body, and so you're sort of the brakes. And an engine wants to run, the brakes slow you down from time to time. But it'll all work out in the end. But simply, it's not the developer wanting to make more money. They want to make a profit, of course. It's a business. And so does the builder. But it's simply a cost of goods sold item. And it goes in at the end, and the buyer pays it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Walk Back in Time was fabulous. I love it.
Yeah, it was. Okay, thank you, Jim. A little off schedule, but that's okay. We'll run that into the public comments. Yeah, okay. And with that, anybody else? We will open it for public comments. Mr. Slagle?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Just down there.
Just curious, are you guys saying that I wrote a story that
Could you
the
just...
city does not want?
Would you mind just coming to the podium? 'Cause I can't hear you back there, and just wait, let her finish and wait your turn. Okay.
Why don't you just wait? I might skip something. We might have to have a second comment here. Iris Shoemaker, 5 Branchwood Road. And I will say I've been in Kansas City quite frequently in the last few weeks on grandma duty, so I may have missed something. But I believe in the near future there's going to be a topic of discussion at the council about motorized vehicles used on streets. Is that, just show me yes? Yes. That's still coming. Okay, all right. I didn't think I'd missed it. Okay, so for 24 years we lived on a nice cul-de-sac where it was very safe for our children to play, our grandchildren to play, all the neighborhood children came to play. Then a few years ago, we moved to Branchwood, which I never realized that it was a cut-through street and how extremely busy it is, nor how fast the traffic travels on it, particularly going east. When they turn off of Clark Street, zip. The little curve in the road that's right in front of our house is frequently traveled in the middle of the street, not on either side, whichever direction you would be going. Not on the right side, but down through the center. We have people drive through our yard periodically. So I'm not the only street that would have those concerns, because there's many neighborhoods that have streets that are not as wide as we would build them today, and we have cars parked on both sides. I'm thinking some of our older neighborhoods. And so it really kind of leaves one lane down the center. So I'm thinking safety. I also think that this summer, as I work in my yard a lot in the summer, I saw a proliferary of vehicles with motors on them. Probably the most dangerous one I saw was what I think is a child's vehicle. It was about this tall, but a full adult, younger man, adult like 20s, was riding it like this. If I had pulled out of my driveway where the slope of the goes down and my blind spots on my car, it could have been not a good thing. If I was driving a very large truck, I would have never been able to see that individual. We had, all sorts of scooters and things like that, more so in the summer because the kids were out. But I'm just trying to think of safety. And as we all were just discussing about sidewalks, we don't have sidewalks. So on our streets, we have people walking, jogging, riding bicycles, and now we're going to add something else. And one of our concerns is putting one more thing on the plate of our public safety department. We have many discussions going on about...
You had, there's 3 minutes, but you want to finish, or you can let him finish for you.
Homeless, we have a lot of drug problems. I don't think we need to add one more thing to the public safety to try to implement.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Shoemaker, 5 Branchwood Road. Basically, I'm agreeing with her. The safety is the issue. If we have young children in homes where they have access to whatever it may be, a motorized vehicle, they're going to be out in the street and they don't have the common sense to be safe. All of you have grandchildren or children, and
I hope not.
Yeah, right.
That's why I said children.
There's going to be a talk at home when I get home.
But anyway, they're not capable of making adult decisions on a motorbike. So I think it's very adamant. There's going to be kids hurt if that comes through. And I don't think it's the public safety's job to address little kids out there on the bikes. Puts them in a bad spot, too, as being the bad guy. You can't ride that little bike, but Dad said I could. So that's kind of where I'm at. Safety. Don't be the ones who said, yeah, it's okay to ride out there. Thank you.
Appreciate your comment, Mike. Did Chief Mesco pay you to say those things?
Okay, anybody else? Now, did you want to?
I don't ever remember right.
You have to come forward. I'm sorry, you're back there in the back.
City Council doesn't want contractors coming to the city, so I'd just like some clarification on that.
No, I just think the narrative of who was talked to was that contractors didn't want to come here, and I don't think that is true on that part. I'm not saying that you said the city didn't want to, but
you did say that.
Huh?
You did say that.
Oh.
Who am I talking to?
I don't know exactly what we're
Just
talking
go to your name and address so we know who we're talking to.
My name's Dennis Sharkey. I work for the Mexico Ledger.
Okay.
the person you say is, writing these stories that I didn't write. So.
I don't know of any.
I mean, I didn't write those stories. I mean, a meeting happened and people talked during it, and I wrote about it, and now you're upset with me. So I don't understand.
I don't think we
What's
called
the problem?
anybody out, did we?
I didn't call anybody specifically.
So the media said the newspaper was said, so I don't know of another newspaper in town, so.
All right, thank you.
Nobody's going to clarify it, just.
I don't know what you're talking, I mean, I'm not sure about him or you, either one.
I don't know what you're talking about either, that's why I'm asking. You're just saying stuff.
Okay. Anybody else want to make the evening more interesting?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I actually have two questions I forgot. One is, I remember because of what you guys brought up. What's the deal? What happened with the accident, the ATV or whatever? Wasn't there an accident here in the city just this last week with some kids?
There was.
Was it an ATV?
It would meet the definition of an ATV, correct.
Okay.
Two 17-year-olds celebrating a birthday, really, so.
All right, guys, anybody want to?
I move we
Motion adjourn. Okay.
Second.
Miller,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.